Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Hart for those of you that are new. And today I'll be breaking down this 8-game NBA slate here for tonight. This is Tuesday night's slate breakdown, tonight's breakdown. So I'll be talking through my favorite plays, who I like, who I don't like, kind of going through an early look player pool. As always, I'll have my updated core plays on my Patreon link down below. I'll throw them out on, I'll throw an early look core 4 out on Twitter today as well. So make sure to follow me there. But make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Do appreciate all the support. Thank you guys. And let's get right into it. So in this first game here, we can see the Magic and Hornets, 8.5 point spread. So obviously there's some blowout risks. 207.5 game total, which is extremely, extremely low and gross. Looking across the board, there's a lot of low game totals, a lot of potential spots where there is blowout risk. But that's what we had to work with. So as you can see, as I said, Magic Hornets, 8.5 point spread, 207.5 game total. Celtics, Cavs, 8 point spread there as well, 215.5. Pelicans, Raptors, 9 point spread, 220.5 game total. So obviously blowout risk, but there's some good game totals there for that one. In terms of across the slates, across the board for today, nothing too crazy. Pistons, Heat, 11.5 point spread, 217. 76ers, Nets, 3 point spread, 216.5. Hawks, Knicks, 3 point spread, 215.5. Spurs, Rockets, 7.5, 228.5. Obviously, Pacers, Mavs, 4.5 point spread, 245.5 game total. Looks like obviously the best game environment in terms of game total to target. And then Suns, Nuggets, 9.5 point spread, 223.5 game total. So jumping into this first game here, Orlando versus the Hornets. So for this game here, the Hornets are a team we always want to target. They're just god awful. They play no defense, so you really, really want to target them on this slate. And that leads me to Paolo Banchero. He's been criminally underrated this season. He's just getting no love across the board when it comes to NBA media, national attention, because he's in Orlando. Makes sense, but still, this dude's been absolutely killing it, as you can see. Really stepped it up in terms of playmaking with the assists, with the rebounds, and he can score. So absolutely love Paolo here in the spot against the Hornets. Franz, I think, is a solid pivot play off of Paolo. If you don't want to get to Paolo, you can definitely get to Franz at 7,400. But it kind of seems like Paolo's really taken over the alpha role, and Franz is more so that kind of the backup alpha. So right now, I really prefer going to Paolo, but Franz is still a solid option there at 7,400. And I don't mind taking a dart throw in GPPs on Wendell. As you can see, the minutes aren't a guarantee, but if you can see close to 30 minutes, he does have that room to go for 30 plus a double. So at 5,400 doesn't hurt you too much there if you do play him, and he only goes for like mid-20s. Suggs is fine. Once again, just not shooting the ball a ton. The offense is going to go through Paolo and Franz. So these guys are kind of just there. If you land on them, sure. Nothing too crazy, but otherwise, don't have a ton of interest in these guys. Isaac, I think, is an okay value, but nothing too crazy there besides Paolo for me. On the Charlotte side here, obviously the offense is going through Bridges and Miller still. The minutes have just been insane on Bridges, as you can see, pretty much 40 minutes a game. Miller, pretty much close to that as well. So I don't mind him. Miller's kind of playmaking has gone down a little bit with the addition of like Trey Mann and these other just guys like Micic, who's been seeing a lot of run recently. So I'd say more so just wait and see what the starting lineup is. If they're going to run Micic in the starting lineup again at 5,000, if he's going to play 30 plus minutes, not going to be a guy who's going to go out there and score a ton, but he's one of those guys who's going to go out there and has that double upside with the assists. So I think he'd be a solid play there, even in some blowout risk. Even though Orlando's really good at defense, these guys still look pretty decent. Grant Williams, same thing, playing a ton of minutes. Obviously, you can't expect him to go for a double, but still, 5,400 guys playing close to mid-30s, 40 minutes. Not bad at 5,400. I think these guys are all just strong secondary options. Nothing too crazy here. Bertans has been getting more run recently, as you can see the past few games. Very score independent, but he's 4,000. So, yeah, there is some interest down here for these guys. But I'd say they're more so just kind of a, if you need a last-second piece in, sure, you land on them. But otherwise, I don't think I have a ton of interest in them. Moving on to the Pelicans here versus Toronto. Pelican side with a fully healthy team. They are pretty cheap. CJ, Zion, Ingram. If you land on one of them, I still think the best one would probably be Ingram. But, they're all fine. They're all there. J Val's minutes are kind of ticking down a little bit when those big three are playing. Murphy's priced up with, guys missing. So there's just not a lot of interest for me in terms of the Pelicans, in terms of the pricing. Everyone's priced about right. As I said, if you want to land on someone, I'd still say it'd probably be Ingram for me. CJ, I don't mind 7,000 for him, but otherwise, not a ton of interest in the Pelicans for me right now. For Toronto here, obviously the big news is Podol and Barnes are out. The same thing with Bruce Brown there. So a lot of injuries here, so a lot of minutes and usage to go around. Obviously, the offense is going to flow through quickly and Barrett, so they both look like very, very strong plays. Kelly Olynyk just signed a deal, extension. He played 28 minutes 2 games ago, 26 that last game. So, I mean, he's getting a solid run. So at 6,300, I don't love it. But if he's going to start, you could definitely take a shot on him. It's just one of those things. The minutes aren't a guarantee. Like, they're not playing for much. So they could definitely, split up those minutes with kind of their smaller guys, their younger guys, like a Porter down there, or even throw in Nwora. So they could definitely go small. There's no guarantee that, Kelly Olynyk's going to see a ton of minutes. But if you want to take the dart throw, you could. Gary Trent Jr., scoring independence, but he's seen a ton of minutes. He is there at 5,400. Agbaji, kind of the same thing. I think I'd rather take a shot on him than Gary Trent. I mean, he's very aggressive that last game. It kind of seems like they're going to give him the green light, hopefully, and just see what they have with him. So he's interesting at 4,800. I like Grady Dick as well. Another guy should see mid-20s minutes. He should start being a little bit more aggressive here. With no Scotty Barnes, I do think they're going to want these young guys to kind of step up over the last, next month and a half of the season, kind of see what they have with these guys. So I think my interest would lie in Agbaji here and Grady Dick, if there is, with those two, sorry. And then obviously if you want to go for the two main guys, I'd say it's going to be Barrett and Quickly. Nwora, not seeing a ton of minutes right now, enough for me to get to him. Moving on to Philly here versus Brooklyn. Philly, we know the offense is going to go through Maxey and Harris there and Buddy. Those three guys are the main guys. Buddy's minutes have kind of ticked down a little bit here. Was seeing kind of mid-30s minutes. Now it's kind of dropped down to kind of around 30 minutes. So I still think he's a little bit risky. These two are obviously going to be your safer plays. Maxey and Harris, they both look pretty strong. Oubre, kind of like the Buddy Hield play, going to see close to 30 minutes, but they're just there. Lowry did get moved into the starting lineup, but I would assume he moves back out. We'll have to wait and see. But if he starts once again, still think he's a viable option. Reed was coming off the bench there. Okay, and they had been starting Mo Bamba, but as you can see, not seeing a ton of run. So, yeah, I'd really just stick with the two main guys, kind of one of those teams. Stick with them at two main guys. They do have some GPP options in Oubre and Hield that you could get to in GPP. Same thing with Lowry, but nothing crazy there. Moving on to Brooklyn. On the Brooklyn side, Bridges is kind of the main guy when it comes to their offense. Did not play well that last game for a 14. Expect to bounce back for him here. Kind of one of those guys who's never owned 7,500, not the best price. They've really gone overlooked this season. Cam Thomas also might be back. If he's back, obviously it eats into the usage for guys like Schroeder, guys like DFS, Cam Johnson, that sort of stuff. So if he's back, it does hurt this offense. I'd really just stick with the main two guys and possibly get into Claxton. Now if he's out, I still think obviously Bridges looks good, and then obviously guys like Cam Johnson who has been playing better recently, shooting the ball more. Obviously, with Cam Thomas off the floor, that helps a lot. Same thing with Schroeder starting, playing good minutes, shooting the ball a decent amount. So a good amount of interest here in terms of like Schroeder, Bridges, and Claxton. If there's no Cam Thomas for me, but if there's Cam Thomas, especially if you add in Sharp and Ben Simmons, it's really just going to be the main two guys for me, Bridges and Cam Thomas, and possibly taking a shot on Claxton. Otherwise, not a lot of interest there. Moving on to Boston here versus Cleveland. On the Boston side, we have Tatum at the top 9-7. Brown and Porzingis are questionable. Obviously, if one or both of them miss, then we're going to want to load up on at least, I'd say, one or two Celtics. Obviously, Tatum would be the smartest, kind of the main guy. But then, obviously, if Porzingis is out, we could get Al Horford starting, and then we could get some Tillman off the bench. There'd be some good value there. But obviously, I still think they're going to run Luke Cornett as well. So that could definitely eat into the value there for Tillman. So I'd be cautious with that. But obviously, then Jaylen Brown's out. Expect guys like White and Holiday to step up offensively. Same thing with Porzingis. So I'd say getting into at least two Celtics, if one or both these guys are out, is probably going to be the optimal way. Moving on to Cleveland here. Once again, no Donovan Mitchell. Strus is out as well. We got Okoro and Karis LeVert questionable. Karis is truly questionable. Okoro is same thing. So good amount of news here as well. Good amount of news in this game. So this is kind of a pivotal game to kind of wait for the news and build around, because if, obviously, as I said with Boston, if one or two of those guys miss, we're going to want to load up on one or two of the guys on the Boston side. And obviously on the Cleveland side, same thing. With no Mitchell, that leads you to a guy like Darius Garland and a guy like Karis LeVert to kind of pick up offense. Garland starts, LeVert off the bench. They both look really, really good at their price tags. And then it makes guys like Allen and Mobley way more viable and really, really strong plays. And with the, Strus being out, it opens up a guy like Merrill, who is, very score independent, but he's been solid at getting peripheral stats. So I wouldn't mind him. He'd see a ton of minutes as well, 4,100. I mean, it could be a very, very chalky Boston and Cleveland day, but that's kind of how the slate's kind of turning out to be with the injury news. So as always, stay up to date with that. Detroit versus Miami. I think that's a solid spot for these Detroit guys in terms of ownership and like their ability to go for 40 plus. Cade hasn't been playing great recently, but as you can see, easily has the ability to go for, 40, 50 plus there. Had a nice little streak of 5 games in a row. Duran, 6,800, kind of same thing. The minutes have not been great, but as you can see, he can still go for 40 plus in those minutes. So I think they're solid secondary options, especially if you're trying to get different on the slate. But you just don't feel great landing on any of these Detroit guys, especially in a slow-paced matchup against Miami. Now, for Miami, it's a little bit different. It's a fantastic matchup here. So I don't mind getting to, Jimmy or Bam. They're going to lead the offense here. I think Rozier would probably be my favorite one, though. Not going to be super, super aggressive, but should still see around 15 shot attempts. His ceiling really hasn't been there since joining the Heat, but, with no hero, it should definitely help him out in terms of offense ability. So I think it'd be my favorite play, followed by Jimmy and then Bam. Otherwise, not a ton of interest here. They will run some other guys out like Highsmith, Jovic, with, Love and Richardson out. They'll get some run there, but, Caleb Martin's there, Jaquez is there. So they do have a good amount of guys they can kind of filter in there, but offense is going to flow through Bam, Jimmy, Duncan, and Rozier. So don't really have to go crazy with the secondary options. Moving on to Atlanta here versus the Knicks. Atlanta side, obviously, DeJounte Murray looks like a safe, very, very safe spend up with no Trae Young. Jalen Johnson, priced all the way up to 8,000. Doesn't feel great for me personally, just with how inconsistent he is offensively. He's more of a high energy guy. That's kind of how he gets all his points, threes, dunks, cuts, that stuff. I think he does hurt offensively with no Trae Young, being able to throw him lobs, stuff like that. Boggy has been pretty bad with no Trae Young. You would expect his, assist to go up a little bit more. It really hasn't. His role really hasn't changed much in terms of just him just getting more minutes, but still 6,400 for him. We know he has a huge, huge ceiling there, especially if he gets hot. So I still have a lot of interest in Boggy there, even though he's been pretty, pretty bad. Okongwu is still out, so Capella's getting the run. See mid-20s minutes. I don't know if he's on a minutes limit. If he's not, Bruno could be an option there for value, especially if you think Capella gets in foul trouble. But yeah, I think the main guys would be obviously DeJounte, Boggy. I do have a little bit of interest in Sadiq Bey and DeAndre Hunter. They're there, but I'd really just stick kind of with the main two guys, DeJounte Murray and Bogdanovich for me. Moving on to the Knicks side here. For the Knicks, Brunson is questionable. Obviously, it's big news because if he's out, going to want to load up on a guy like DiVincenzo, who's, very mispriced. Even Josh Hart, I mean, it feels disgusting landing on him, but this dude is playing pretty much the whole game. 47 minutes against Golden State, 45 against Cleveland. I mean, it's hard to fail even at almost 8,000 when this dude's playing 45 minutes. Now, he could find a way. He could definitely get in foul trouble. He can go out and shoot, 2 of 15, not get a double-double with assists and triple-double last game, double-double that game before. I mean, he's been going off. It does not feel great landing on him at 7,900, but he's playing literally the entire game. So that's what makes it viable. But obviously, if Brunson's back, I'd really just stick with Brunson and DiVincenzo as kind of my main go-to guys. I still think Hartenstein's very, very interesting. The minutes have not been the best with him recently, but I do think it helps with, Brunson being back. They could definitely utilize a big there. They like to set a lot of on-ball screens. So I think it just helped overall, especially with Hartenstein, to kind of be more fluid in the offense with Brunson out there in the pick and roll. Obviously, with him out, it does kind of turn into just more of a spread offense with DiVincenzo kind of leading it, which I do think hurts Hartenstein a little bit. And that's why his minutes have not been the best. He's also been kind of injured, but if he's good to go, I do really like him because we know he has really, really good upside. We haven't seen in the past, he's been injured pretty much since the 8th. He's played, 4, 5 games so far. Kind of seen, mid-20s minutes, low 20s minutes. But before that, as you can see, he was seeing good run in games where it was close, 30 plus minutes. He was going for 39, 31, 47, 39. I mean, you kind of get the gist here, pretty much 35 plus in all the games he's seen, 30 plus. So I have a good amount of interest in him if he's off a minutes limit. And obviously DiVincenzo if there's no Brunson. Now, if there's Brunson, it's going to be kind of the same three: Brunson, DiVincenzo, and Hartenstein for me. Moving on to the Spurs here versus Houston. Victor is Victor, 10.7, still viable. I mean, the minutes, once again, you'd want more, but even in the minutes, the short amount of minutes he's seen, about 31, 32. I mean, the dude's just insane. The blocks, the steals, it's just absolutely wild. So he's always a very, very safe spend up. Vassell here, kind of the secondary option on his team. He's been really good as well, shooting the ball a ton. So, I mean, those two are the main guys. If you want to get different, look to Vassell. Victor's always going to be a little bit chalky just because of his upside, but they're both there. In terms of the rest of the team, I don't have much interest. I mean, these two are leading the teams in terms of usage offensively. So it just, you don't feel great laying out anyone else. Sengun's been pretty cheap. Hasn't been the best recently, but we know he has really, really strong upside. Not the best matchup going up against Victor, but Sengun usually thrives in tough matchups. He usually does pretty well against Jokic. So not a lot of people have been on him recently. Not a lot of hype. He's kind of fallen off the radar a little bit in terms of just hype overall in the media, but do really like him there. We'll take DiVincenzo out for a minute. We'll throw in Sengun. In terms of the rest of the team, I don't have a lot of interest in the rest of the team here. I think Cam Whitmore is an interesting kind of a GPP dart throw play off the bench, a guy who can explode in a short amount of time. But it's really going to be Fred VanVleet for me and Sengun. Fred just plays a ton of minutes, as you can see there. And, Sengun has a triple-double upside. So I think they both look really good here in this matchup. I'll throw them in there. And then finish off the day with Indiana versus Dallas. Obviously, fantastic game environment. I mean, it's really hard not to get to, Halpin there at 9,000. He's been god-awful. And he's been pretty low-owned the past few games. I've been playing him. He's been absolutely screwing me. But 9,000 for him in this fast-paced matchup. Expect a huge bounce back for him. So really, really like him. I think Siakam's an interesting secondary option. Turner's always viable in GPPs, but my main focus is going to be on Halliburton. And on the Dallas side here, obviously, the big news is Luka. If he's in, him and Kyrie are pretty much my only interest there, with a little bit of Lively, even though his minutes have kind of been up and down. But if obviously Luka's out, then we're going to want to get to, I'd say, at least Kyrie, and then possibly get into a guy like, Josh Green here off the bench, but more so a guy like Tim Hardaway Jr. He'd see close to probably, I'd say, 30 minutes, would shoot the ball probably 15 times. So him and Kyrie would be the main ones offensively to target with no Luka. And the secondary option would be a guy like Josh Green there, possibly some Exum. So some injury news we do have to wait for this entire slate. Obviously Dallas and obviously Boston and Cleveland, and kind of control the whole slate and how we want to build. So hope you guys like the video. Hit that like button. I'll have my early look core plays out soon. Thanks.